So the unit that I've done the blended learning in is called Mathematics for Engineers 2. It's a core unit for engineering students. So it's the second of the core units that they have to do in their first year. There is quite a large cohort in this unit, between 200 and 250, and they do struggle with passing it. And so it has a fairly high failure rate in it, and it does require a fair bit of work to be put into the unit. The challenge was when we first offered this unit as a summer school unit, so we had to take a full semester and condense it into 6 weeks, but it's a unit that has a lot of content in it, and these students have fairly poor maths background coming into university. So that was a challenge, that you couldn't overload them with a lot of material because they just weren't able to take that in. So I set it up such that they had to listen to an online lecture before they came. They had then an hour face-to-face session where I talked through questions, asked them leading questions about what they'd seen in the video, and then they had a longer tutorial session of 2 hours to actually work through it themselves. But I needed to get across this information before they started semester, because we didn't have time at the start of a summer unit to allow them a week of just getting into it. So I set up an email list, produced a short PowerPoint presentation which gave them all the information that they needed, and emailed that out to every student, and then put it onto the Views site. And so there was a lot of video preparation for the unit. So in my teaching for my first year unit, which is Maths for Engineers 1, I started off by showing them some apps that they may like to use, so PDF readers, things like that, because all their lecture notes are provided online, and I thought students may want to have that capability of being able to download their notes, annotate it while they're in lectures, and so save paper costs and things like that. And showing them perhaps some of the apps that I've found, things like in the mathematics area that they can graph functions with, so showing them some apps that do that, showing them some apps where they perhaps can find solutions to their questions and that sort of thing. And I have my iPad with me in lectures, that I have my cheat notes on my iPad so that I know the solutions to the questions I'm working through there, because I don't use PowerPoint for the maths lectures. I use the document camera and actually work through questions in front of them, because for them, working through the maths is important to see how it's done step by step, rather than just seeing it as one total picture, which they try to remember off by heart, and it's not a good way to know how things work. So just by showing them how I use it, I've recently also started in one of my tutorials, I've downloaded a class list, and so I mark the class list on my iPad, so it saves me time coming back here to actually have to tick off names and re-enter it into an Excel spreadsheet, things like that. So experimenting with how I can help students use it, but also how it can make my job a little bit easier. Don't try and make it too big to start with. To start small, and perhaps think of ways that you can introduce perhaps even the use of views more into your unit, or are you recording your lectures, because that's a huge resource that you can count on. I've used the recordings for the lectures in times when you need extra resources for a unit. You can pop up a lecture from a previous year or something, so you can actually save them and use them later. I actually used the lectures online when I was starting the blended learning for this unit, having no technical skills, and having this idea of wanting to put lectures, some recordings onto my Views site. I stood in a lecture theatre and talked to myself and had it recorded using lectures online. And so it was a very simple approach. It was a bit time consuming, a bit strange talking to yourself in a lecture theatre, but it was something that was doable. And so then those lectures went up as what the students had to listen to before they came to a session. So that was my content area, and I was able to get it down into quite a what was from an hour lecture or a 2-hour session at times down to say 30-35 minutes. So it was a small chunk of content. So start small. Think about the resources you have. So PowerPoint. On your iPad you've got things like Explain Everything, or a good app that I've been experimenting using with students is called Edu Creations, where you can make little videos. You can write on it, you can upload photos onto it, pictures, images, whatever, and annotate it, so you can make short videos there. You can set up class lists for that, and so students have content, access to your content and things like that. So some of the apps are starting to be helpful in using blended learning, but if you've just got a computer, PowerPoint, talk to yourself in your office, and you can produce stuff that's quite good and a good introduction. With blended learning also, I suppose I found not starting with, this is what the unit's about and this is what you've got to do and this is your assessment. We can put all that stuff into a PowerPoint presentation that they come back and back and back and look at it through the semester, so it's perhaps more effective than using up your first lecture to do those sorts of things. And so you can start with something perhaps a little bit more exciting, but also to plan where it can fit in, so it doesn't have to be the whole unit to start with. It can be just small snippets in blended learning. Use the resources that Views offers. It has its problems, but it's a good tool that everybody has access to.